Jessica Booth for roll call, please.
President Epstein?
Here.
Mr. Brown was unable to attend. Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
And Mr. Bean?
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Booth. Item number 3, receive report from staff regarding the public engagement efforts for Calcasieu Parish's long-term recovery framework. Mr. Galan.
Thank you, Mr. Abshire. Just to give the group a little bit of background, this is the Disaster Recovery Liaison Group made up of Mr. Barris, Mr. Abshire, Mr. Smith, the parish administrator, and Mr. Brame, who was unable to attend. And they were designated at the beginning of the year to really be the liaisons for this overall effort. And the other folks in the audience are key to this effort because they've been the boots on the ground, really doing the grunt work, meeting with stakeholders, meeting with the community, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But what this essentially is, in terms of the background, the way the police jury set it up is the police jury is a lead agency for the overall long-term parish recovery framework with parish administration designated to be over that. Brian has designated me to be the recovery coordinator, and then under that we have 6 recovery support functions, which are essentially stakeholder groups for key areas: community planning, economic, health and social services, housing, infrastructure, and natural and cultural resources. We have a lot of those representatives here today sitting up front, and they've really been doing a great job to try and reach out within their networks, get public input, get input from subject matter experts in these fields to put together a list of priorities, programs, projects, recommendations that we could essentially have ready in hand whenever those federal dollars do hit. So it's very important to get out front because, as we know, the federal disaster aid package has not been put into a bill or passed yet. So we want to be ready for when that happens. We also have another group of folks. We have FEMA, GOSEP, the police jury representative in charge of grants management, Paul Rainwater with Cornerstone Government Affairs at the federal level lobbying for us, and Pat Forbes and OCD have been heavily involved. We actually have the housing director here from OCD who met with our housing recovery support function just before this meeting. We really appreciate her being here for this meeting and just kind of listening in on what's going on here locally. Again, this goal was set out from the very beginning to be comprehensive and transparent for the overall recovery process. That's where we are. We've had all the materials that we've put together to date are on our parish website at www.calcasieuParish.gov/recovery. We've also had an online survey there for anyone from the general public to be able to fill out, provide any input that they might have on any particular one of those recovery support functions or anything in general that they might have. We know that we're dealing with debris. We know that we're dealing with a housing problem. We're still working on that in terms of the short-term recovery day in and day out, and the folks up here are as well in their regular day jobs as well. But this overall focus for the long-term recovery is to see where we want to be long-term whenever we fully recover, which we fully expect to do. We just want to do it in the best way and most efficient way possible that brings the most value to our residents. This is just a sample of the simple survey, so it's very simple for anybody to go online and fill out. The original deadline to submit public comment was on the 2nd, but when we set this out, we also then got hit by an ice storm, which is terrible, but we were able to say, hey, let's not forget that that's possible here in Calcasieu Parish in Southwest Louisiana as well, and incorporate that in our thoughts for a long-term recovery. So we've extended that deadline until the 10th. Of April, so that allows an additional bit of time for the public to be able to comment. And again, that's another reason why we're here, to give the public an opportunity to say, hey, last call for public comment, please get us your input. It really is important. We've had a lot of good public comments and input, and we hope that assists us in putting together a comprehensive and valuable plan for this community. We've moved that little circle a little bit further along in the process, where we are still coordinating our efforts across the recovery support functions to create a plan for implementation. We don't have that plan today. That's not the goal today. We don't want to have that plan before we get as much public input as possible. That's the idea of being transparent in a community-driven process. So in order to do that, we're still gathering input, we're still gathering data, still finalizing that information before we put that into a draft form and present it to our elected officials, our leadership, as well as the general public before adoption by any public agency. The timeline, like I said, has been extended a little bit, so I think that's a sigh of relief for the folks that have been working very diligently on this. It's still an aggressive timeline to be completed with a final plan by early summer. And like I said, we're closing the public comment period until April 10th to go online and do that in addition to this public setting. With that really is the purpose of this meeting, and again, it is for the long-term recovery. We have our staff here to take any questions or comments from the public when it comes to debris or any immediate needs that they might have, because like I said, we're working on that day in and day out, but we also need to have that long-term end in mind. So that's it, and I'll answer any questions before we go into the next item, if you have any. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Galan. Now, item 4 will receive public comment for consideration in Calcasieu Parish's long-term recovery plan. We do have a few speakers, and with these items, we will limit each speaker to 4 minutes. I'd like to ask Mr. Braylon Thomas. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Braylon Harris. I just can't read tonight. Mr. Harris, please state your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Braylon Harris, 1465 Manchester Road, Iowa, Louisiana. Definitely good to be here with each and every one of you all on tonight. I know we have a monumental task in front of us. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Southwest Louisiana Response, which is a partner group with Houston Response, which was a large coalition of churches that developed over in the Houston area following Hurricane Harvey in order to operate in coalition with not only other churches, but also with local government volunteer groups from around the nation to expedite and make more efficient the process of recovery there during that series of events. They are currently now inundated with, of course, the ice storm there as well. But on this past weekend, we were able to have the founder and president of Houston Response here in town with us for a pastors and wives meeting at Paul's Rib Shack with about 30 pastors crossing all racial lines, denominational lines, as well as parish lines here in the Southwest Louisiana area. It was an incredible event, and I just want to communicate to each and every one of you all that I think this is a time where we have to focus on the synergy between church and state and not the separation between church and state. There's a lot of great things I believe that we can do together, that we have to do together in order to face this very large issue that we have in front of us. I would also encourage us to consider the mental impact, the emotional impact, the spiritual impact of exactly what has happened. We were talking just a few moments ago, me and Mr. Grimion, about that it's just not a financial issue. It's just not a housing issue. It's an emotional, it's a mental, it's a social challenge that we have in front of us. And so as we look forward to projects and look forward to things that we have to face, I challenge us to not just think economically and say, well, you know, this is the most economic way that we can do it. I challenge us to think about inspiration. That is this project inspirational? Is it going to have an impact on the morale of the people in our community? Because at the end of the day, when we get to moments like these, when we're looking around and there's really no practical path back to normalcy, inspiration is a very big part of it. Morale, community morale is a very big part of that. And that's something that many times is hard to calculate for investment and return on investment. But if there's ever a moment that we have to know that that is real and that is worth investing in and that the impacts of that will be far-reaching, that time is now. And so there may be things that I think that we should consider that may not make dollars and cents, but they would make faith and they would make good gestures and good community cooperation. And I think those are things that at this time we must see the value of investing in. Also, I think we should invest in making sure that we are doing things that are high energy and high quality when we talk about communications with our community. I think it's very well understood that every person in our community has a lot going on. And so just very frankly, a regular news clipping that's black and white or just a passing note is very difficult in catching the attention of individuals who have so much going on right now. It goes to the thing. It may not make the most economic sense to have high quality, high energy communication going on at this point. It may not be the norm, but I challenge us to think about we do have to capture the attention of people who are inundated, overwhelmed, and stretched very, very thin at this point. And so I think it's very important that we ask, does this capture someone's attention? Does this make someone put the hammer down for a minute and listen? Does this make someone move the bills aside for a moment and really pay attention to this information that we're sharing with them? So I encourage us to make sure that we're investing in high energy and high quality communication because there are great distractions between all the challenges that we're facing. I also, lastly, would like to challenge us to take this show on the road. I want to continue to put before everyone that we do have individuals that are in Dallas, in Houston, in Lafayette, in New Orleans, in Baton Rouge. And again, I know that may not be the most cost-efficient thing to do, to take a show like this on the road, but I challenge us to understand the morale booster that would give our citizens that are elsewhere to know that we've invested the time and the resources to bring this information to them, to sit with them where they are, and to make sure that they are informed that we are actively pursuing a path home for them. So I challenge us to, again, number one, make sure that we're seeing the synergy between church and state. Number two, to make sure that we're understanding that there's an innovation and inspirational part of this that may not be as economically, it may not be as economical as we'd like it to be, but I think it's a very, very wise investment. Number three, to make sure that we're investing in high quality and high energy communication to capture the people's attention because they're so inundated, overwhelmed, and stretched thin. And then lastly, make sure that we're traveling with this information, getting on the road, going meet them where they are to make sure that they know that we are intentional about reaching out to those individuals, especially the children that are missing from our schools and the parents and grandparents that are absolutely wanting to come home, but not sure exactly the way to connect and make sure they can come home the way they'd like to. So again, I yield the rest of my time to whomever may be next, but also want to be sure that you know that Southwest Louisiana Responds and a coalition of over 30 churches across racial, denomination, and parish lines are aligned. We're organized. We're working. We've already done well over 7,000 to 8,000 community service hours. We've brought in well over 1,000 volunteers into the area. We've got another
Harris.
200 coming this week. So thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, I'll time and I'll give them a minute if they're.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Samuel Books or Booker. Welcome, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, sir. My name is Samuel Booker. I reside at 2709 East General Wainwright Drive here in Lake Charles. We've been having repeated drainage problems and flooding problems in our neighborhood, and the neighbors are, and we are afraid, confused, frustrated, among other emotional things, emotionally depressed, because we are repeatedly flooded. And we want to ask you guys to please consider us and rectify our drainage problem. We do not want to lose our community to nature or any other force. So we beseech you that you would closely consider us and rectify our drainage problem. We have a drainage system that has grown obsolete and can no longer hold or control the water that's coming in. We need it upgraded so we could have some peace and feel secure in our homes. Right now, people are really afraid and don't know what's going on, and little information is being passed around. Please consider us, who live in Greenwich Terrace. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Next, we have with us Ms. Carolyn Woosley. Ms. Woosley, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Thank you. Carolyn Woosley, 117 Peton Street, Lake Charles, 70601.
Thank you.
Thank you for tonight's forum. Residential building needs to be designed for surviving this place of high wind, high water, and eroding land. There are examples in Lake Charles. One type is the Haitian cottage design. It has two elements. It's elevated for water to flow under the house and not displace the water into the nearby residences, neighbors. Strong surges fairly easily move earth-mounded elevations. You can see examples in Cameron Parish during Rita. It has a hip roof. Winds cannot easily find a way to lift the roof, and there are no broad walls rigidly facing the winds. We need financial incentives for this. The parish oversaw a federal one that I used. Our house did not flood recently, while the neighbors did. The annual flood insurance premium for me has dropped from $3,000, probably $5,000 now, a year, down to $600 and holding. Can we incentivize new subdivisions to elevate on piers rather than mounded earth and not displace the water? Can we design roads with a pitch to them so the roads take the runoff to larger bodies of water? Was that put into the Bank Street design after the storm of 1918? Can we have catch basins, or is our water table too close to the surface? Use watershed maps to design subdivisions and commercial buildings. Many streets now block natural water flows. We see that a lot in Moss Bluff. We may be losing a battle with nature. Flooding is one of the few ways nature in South Louisiana builds land. Floods leave behind silt that becomes our soil. Let's go with the flow. Give homeowners helpful hints and use an aggressive public service outreach, as you did with your trash campaign. How to tell when your roof is aging. Signs that your water oak is aging. I lived in LA during the earthquake. It was a dreadful experience. We had our building standards ratcheted up, and homeowners expected that. If we don't do that, I can assure you property insurance will. And this will be a problem long term because you cannot have a mortgage without having appropriate insurance. For commercial buildings, study which materials held up and which did not. Incentivize buildings to build back better with storms in mind. We cannot rebuild on the fly. Saving dollars using engineering that failed. Riverbank integrity. Discourage tree and tree stump removal. They are one of the few ways we keep our lake and riverbanks intact, particularly upriver where the economy of sports fishing, et cetera, could be fostered more. Our shorelines are showing signs of stress. I don't care if you're talking about Shell Beach Drive or up the West Fork. Expensive protective measures. Now, again, these require strong advocacy by our congressional representatives, and let's not shy away from the price tag others don't. Southeast Louisiana does not. Populated urban areas such as Boston and Manhattan do not. We have the best argument, and we must use it aggressively. Our region is of strategic importance to the nation. That is the argument. That is the phrase. We are home to natural gas, a key transition energy for decades to come.
1 minute.
We must forcefully argue this case again and again. No other one will work. Our ship channel Corps calls it a hurricane highway. It dumps directly into this lake. It brings salt to our once fresh ecosystem. Salt kills. We do not water our lawns with salt water. Why water our marshes with it? We need the marshes intact to protect us, for starters. Study the efficacy of our saltwater barrier up north of us. So we at least need to harden the ship channel's walls, and we are doing that. Let's encourage it. For hurricane, design ways to lessen the surge up the channel. This will cost billions, but we need to think in those terms with congressional money because this is a hurricane highway. I have seen ways where we can stop the surge, break the back, and I can give that to you in private. But we have to work in alliance with the port. It must be because we have no authority over them. Cameron Parish will probably not like becoming a flood zone of Calcasieu, and there's an immense price tag. But without it, we're lost. The Intercoastal, a federally built artery of international commerce, eroding at an astounding rate. Yet the landowners are supposed to take care of the Intercoastal banks.
Ms.
Let's
Woosley,
argue in Congress.
4 minutes is up, Mr. President.
Okay, to float big funds to maintain the intercoastal. We use the big arguments, strategic importance to the nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We certainly need financial incentives.
Thank you, Ms. Woosley.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Lydia Lars. I'd like to invite you to the podium, please. Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Lydia Lars, 1716 Wendell Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Just got the paper for your framework. However, and I'm trying to just do some of the pivot points. Be proactive versus reactive. And I'm just looking at your little dots. Individual and family empowerment. Where's your data? Where's your story? Where's the study to show us? Where's your data to show that we are actually seeing this? I don't see it. As a citizen of Calcasieu Parish, I haven't seen your data where you're trying to involve individual and family empowerment. I don't see it. I don't feel it. And then your one about pre-disaster recovery planning. What's your planning in place that you have? We're 62 days out to hurricane season 21. What's your plan? What's the plan that you're bringing to the people about what you're doing behind these closed walls? We have to come from behind the brick and mortar, and we have to go to the community to which you serve and inform the community for which you serve. Okay, create unity. Unity. You're saying unity of effort. My thing is, I haven't seen it. I haven't felt it. Let's make unity an action, not just a word that's printed on a piece of paper to send to the federal government to get dollars. Let's make unity in real spirit, for real, because I don't feel it as a citizen of Calcasieu Parish, 53 years. Psychological and emotional recovery. Where is it? I don't see it. I don't feel it. In my community, my people does not see it. My people does not feel it. My people does not feel as though they are a part of it. It's as though we are left out of the equation to get to the final result that you all are seeking. How do we get there? We need to learn how to solve problems. We give a student a problem on a test, and we tell them to solve it and explain their steps. Well, we have problems. How are we as adults going to solve the problems and explain in steps? How are we going to solve the problems? I don't feel I'm of the community. I'm in the community, but I don't feel like I'm of the community as a whole, as a person. My community is being left out, and I have a problem with that. We have to get to the root of what is the problem. Before we do any of this, you have to make our people feel as though they are a part of. And right now, we're being left out.
Thank you, Ms. Lars. Next with us, we have Roshetta Ozane.
Roshetta and Dominique together.
I'm sorry. Reminder, we have 4 minutes per speaker. So please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Roshetta Ozane, 2422 Fox Run Street, Westlake, Louisiana, 70669.
My name is Dominique Darbone, 313 West Oak Lane, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70605. Roshetta and I are going to be speaking today on behalf of the Vessel Project and the people that we have represented. Thank you. Oh, you don't like it? I'm just kidding.
I understand. I have mic control issues.
Mutual aid is when people get together to meet each other's basic survival needs with a shared understanding that the systems we live under are not going to meet our needs, and we can do it together. Vessel Project is a grassroots disaster relief organization based on the principles of solidarity, mutual aid, and autonomous direct action. We're the Vessel Project. I don't know if you all have seen us in the news, in the newspapers, on Facebook, but Dominique and I met on Valentine's Day. And it's funny that we met on Valentine's Day because we met with a love for our community. And it's just developed. We did not know each other before then. I was on the grounds walking the streets looking for our homeless and our community members who are facing housing insecurities to ensure that they did not freeze to death. That was my only goal. Dominique saw my posts, and she came and met me. Braylon Harris came, several community members, several people who were running for city council, running for mayor. I inboxed them. I didn't know them. I sent them an inbox on Facebook, and they came to meet me at the gas station. While we were at the gas station, we had several of our homeless community members there who had gone through the system that was in place for our friends who did not have a home during the freeze. They had called 211, and 211 had given them a location to go get on a bus, to be bused to a location to be protected from the freeze. We stood out there for 8 hours with some of them. Temperatures were already dropping in the 30s while they waited for a bus. The bus came several times, but if it came and they were not there because they had gone to the bathroom or they had went away to go get somebody else, the bus left them. If the bus came and they didn't have an ID, the bus left them. So while we were standing there freezing ourselves, and I had my then 14-year-old son out there with me, he was freezing. He was like, "Mama, why are you out here?" I said, "I'm not leaving them here with an expectation that a bus is going to pick them up, and then I get home, and then the next day I have to hear on the news that somebody froze to death waiting on a bus." So I walked over to the Studio 6, and I paid out of my pocket for the people who were standing there freezing, waiting on a system that was in place. So Dominique and I are here today just to let you know who we are, the Vessel Project. Hurricane season is coming back up. We're still operating, helping our fellow citizens who are facing these housing insecurities, who are newly homeless since March last year during COVID, since the hurricanes. These people were not homeless before then. We just want to know what's the plan now. Like somebody said earlier, let's be proactive, not reactive. Let's already get this plan in place. These people don't have phones. They don't have cars. They can't get from one side of town to the other side of town to wait on a bus.
Much less evacuate for a hurricane.
They cannot, you know, and we've been literally on the grounds walking, going into our homeless communities. A lot of them have been abandoned. You know, a lot of them have had to move. So we just want, like she said, a proactive plan in place so that we're not facing what we did during the freeze.
Because we can't house 55 people out of our own pockets again.
Yeah.
Or ask the community to donate tens of thousands of dollars like they did a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
which is incredible. But we would all like to get on the same page so we can talk to our friends and let them know what the plan is and continue to take care of them together, because it takes all of us.
All of us. And like we said, mutual aid, everybody working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Linda Caesar. Welcome, Ms. Caesar. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Linda Caesar. I live at 2616 General Patch in Greenwich Terrace. I just heard about the meeting, so I jumped up and came here, and
Glad to have you.
I would have a lot to say, but I'm not really fully prepared. But I am concerned about many issues. Definitely the infrastructure. We do need some type of draining. We have been flooded, not only by floods, but by heavy rains. I am always frightened when it starts raining. Is the water going to get in my house again? This has happened so many times, and it's happened even more to the people who live closer to 210. As you move back in the terrace, there's more water, more water. Of course, the city itself has a lot of drainage problems, because if you come down Highway 14 Broad Street, I practically lost my car trying to get to work over here at this building one day. But I see that we only have 2 drainage areas on each block. And it's just not, it drains, it's just not enough at all. And oftentimes, they're full of something, full of trash, full of debris. We have a whole lot to do. I know we have a lot to do, but we need some help with the drainage. We need some help maybe with home elevations. I know there was talk about buying people out. Well, how are you going to buy people out that are living in a low mid-income community and the houses aren't worth that much? Are you going to give them enough to go buy a house somewhere else? Of course not. So we want some help with keeping our community together. We definitely need help with the drainage. I am also concerned about the mental impact that all of these things have had on our community, the floods and the hurricanes, the ice storm, because I see more homeless people walking the streets. I was just confronted by one probably a good hour ago. But I had given away all my money already. I didn't have any more to give him, you know? So because you feel for these people. But a lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them have mental problems. But we don't have enough of mental resources in this community to help. Not at all. Not at all. We don't have it for the kids, and we don't have it for the adults. But more so even for the kids coming up. We do need something done about that. We know that with all of this happening, our premiums are going to go up. The people are already disgusted about insurances not wanting to pay and bad contractors, and there's just so much going on. So it's taking a toll on everybody. And it's taking a toll on me. And I always try to keep a smile. And people say, you don't let anything bother you. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I don't sleep at night. There's just so much.
1 minute, ma'am.
Okay, so much that we need to do. Like I said, every time it's about to rain, I'm frightened. I've had enough of water in my house. I can't even swim. Our building standards probably need to be better than what they are. Because I'm watching some of these contractors repairing some of these homes, and the building standards aren't that great. So next flood, next wind, everything's going to be down again, and that might be as soon as this summer. But anything you can do to help, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And lastly, we have Ms. Angela Guth. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Take this off. I feel like I can speak better. My name is Angela Guth. My home address is 2412 Tyler Street, 70605. I'm actually here representing the Better Business Bureau. And I came to this meeting because I wanted to hear what some of the input was from the citizens, because I did put a little bit of input on your website. In the very beginning, right after the storm, you know, we're a nonprofit. We're one of 100 BBBs in the United States and Canada. And in the very beginning, me, my other full-timer and my part-timer handled 200 to 300 phone calls a day on a hotspot, because everybody was on a hotspot right in the beginning. We were that resource for contractors. We were that resource for plumbers. We were resources for tree removal. The problem that I want to give to you as the police jury, there was contractors crawling like ants in this city. And I know every one of you probably had 14 to 15 people probably knocking on your door saying, hey, can I get this tree out of your yard? Can I fix your roof? A lot of those contractors, they were vetted with a temporary work permit. They came to us and they wanted to be a member of the Better Business Bureau. When we tried to vet them, they weren't licensed. And I don't know what was happening. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I don't know what the vetting process was. I am very grateful that Calcasieu Parish opened up and let people come in and start working on their homes immediately, unlike Rita 15 years ago. But what are your vetting processes to issue those work permits? Did you know a roofer in Texas does not have to have a license? They're 60 miles west of us. So when they're coming over here, they're not licensed. So is that temporary work permit okay for them to come and work on a roof here? Then you have your consumer, that's what we call them, our residents or consumers, who have to deal with their insurance company, and they're looking for a licensed roofer. They want to make sure they're licensed. Well, not in the state of Louisiana. They're not. And some of them were they were wonderful. They were great. They're good contractors. But we are dealing with a lot of inferior work. We are dealing with a lot of complaints. I can't even begin to tell you the number of phone calls we're getting daily on contractor fraud. Anywhere from people giving $18,000 up front and never seeing the contractors again, to paying their roofer and the roofer not paying the supplier, and the supplier's putting liens on the consumers now. It is very troublesome. We want to work with our public as a nonprofit. Like I said, we're not there as a government agency. We're just here to help. But I came to this meeting, so how can we help in the next storm? Because honestly, we couldn't answer the phone calls fast enough to try to help. So we need some sort of group that can guide consumers. Where do they go? They didn't know. I mean, I made it through Rita, a little bit of damage. But I mean, if my house was destroyed, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I had an insurance document this thick, and I had no idea what to do with it, let alone the people that don't have insurance and didn't know where to turn. There's got to be some sort of group or advocacy or something to help these residents and know what steps do they need to do first. Don't pay someone to tarp your roof and get a bill for $7,000. Did you get their name? No. They just were there. I was desperate. I needed my house tarped. Over and over and over again, we got those stories. And it's heartbreaking for us because we can't help them because they're scammed. They're gone. They're chasing the next storm, and we'll never hear from them again. So my last thing is communication. A lot of people, I mean, just like us, we didn't have phones. We had to transfer them to New Orleans and Baton Rouge, BBBs, to get us the help. But a lot of people didn't know. If they didn't have a cell phone, if they didn't have internet access, if they didn't have anything, they didn't know what was happening right after the storm. And we need to do a better job of communicating with our community. Somehow, I mean, even KPLC was down. We got to come up with that plan. How are we going to reach our community? Even if we have to set up shops in all different parts of the Calcasieu Parish, for instance. Just let it be a place where people can just pull up and say, what do I do if this happens? And the BBB will be there to help, I promise you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Guth. I think that concludes our public comments. And I want to just say thank you to everyone who came out to speak tonight, and know that these comments are incorporated into the different groups that are meeting to discuss the various issues, and that we hear your concerns, and we're working to develop a plan to hit the bullet points on our recovery framework. So,
Mr. President, if I could,
yes,
just
sir, please
help with a reminder, if Mr. Galan could state again the new deadline, which has been extended for any public input, and how people can communicate related to this matter.
Sure. Thank you. Again, you can go to calcasieuParish.gov/recovery to put in any of your public comment, even for the folks that are here today. If you'd like to add additional commentary, we certainly welcome it, but we will incorporate this into the public comment section. And we're glad that our recovery support function leaders are here to listen, as well as our elected officials, because we want this to be both elected and community working together for a solution to our long-term recovery. So with that, I'll yield back.
thank you. Mr. Barris.
Mr. Galan, remind me how long the public comment has been open? When did we first make that available?
The public comment opened on March 2nd, and it'll be open until April 10th.
So 28 days, we've already had that open?
Yes, and we received a lot of
available-
public comment.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, so it'll be over a month of public comment period.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the group? Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Okay, so the comments are available through the actual website. So if someone really doesn't have any type of access to the web, can they do it another way? Like coming in and fill out a paper form or whatever they have? A survey?
If they don't have access to the internet, we certainly they're welcome to come to our police tree office, and we'll guide them on how to do it, whether it's paper form, we'll take it and incorporate it into the plan. The actual public comment isn't available because it's got names and addresses and personal information, so we want to make sure that we vet that and take care of it in a way that's consumable by the general public.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Well, if that's all the comments we have for this evening, I would like to thank everyone for coming out and listening, and I look forward to our meetings in the future. And we're adjourned. Thank you.